on a career in investment banking. And Samson, please feel free to introduce yourself to the room. Can spot highlights on as much as you are willing to share, um, particularly why it's very important for them to listen to you this evening, and you can take it from there on, what investment banking is and how to get into investment banking locally and globally as a professional. Over to you. Okon Samuel, yes, it's been recorded. So we'll send the recording to those who registered for the event. So you haven't registered, link is still there. Those are the people that we have their emails to send the recording to. Yeah. So cheers, everyone. Over to you, Samson.
Okay, if you would give me just a few seconds, I'm trying to pull up something. Sorry, I was meant to actually, I wanted to have a presentation for this, but I would really just have to apologize. It was an hell of a week, right? So I guess I will really try as much as possible to. How do I think someone is asking for the presentation? But just give me a sec to also maybe it would be good to put a face to it here. Just a second. Um, okay. Need to just 1 second.
Okay, while we get something set up, please, if you just a quick check on quality of audio and video, can you hear? Can you hear me? So if you can hear me, just raise your hand so I'm clear that everyone can hear me. But when you raise your hand and you can hear me, please drop your hand so that it doesn't come off as if there's a question. Okay, a lot of hands, a lot of hands. You can drop your hands now. Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, just do that check. So someone asked for the registration link. I had mentioned that um we would share the recording to people who register on the registration link, because that's the only people that we have the emails for. Just to note, there's a particular question in the registration link that says, which Incrover community do you belong to or which group? If you are not part of the community, just select 20.0 or anyone randomly. It doesn't really matter because we encourage you to share this across. Yeah. So if you don't have any question again, if you don't have any need to raise hand, Talabi Ahmed, you can drop your hand so it um doesn't come off as there's a this thing. So Samson, just let me know when you're ready. I'll stop talking. So the link is just for people to there
Sure,
was a registration
sure.
link for the event earlier for the past 2-3 weeks. So the link is for us to also send a recording of this event to those that made out the time to attend.
Sorry, guys, can everyone hear me? Hello?
We can,
Yes,
yeah,
please. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, are still in. Am I in the right room? Okay.
yes, we can hear you, Samson. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right. I needed to change my browser. Uh, okay. So I thought it would be great to put a face to the conversation so that to be slightly more effective now that I appear not to have a presentation for you guys. But I think what I would do after this, for those who likes to read, I could share one or two things that you can go through that can help you appreciate the industry a little bit more. Um, and for those who would prefer presentation, I think I might be able to share something that was used in a previous past that I had used before, really, that I think you might find a bit more helpful. So, Hade, please let me know when to start. I'll just be on standby.
Yeah, feel free. You can start right away. Thumbs up. Start now. Did you get that?
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, okay, no problem. Okay, so I'm just going to follow through the curriculum that Adilo has shared with me. Uh, okay, so hmm, okay, let me just start broadly about. I'll give you a brief about myself. Tell you what I do, I got here, and then probably go straight to how I think you can plan yourself to let me use the word get into the industry itself as an investment banker, right? Should you choose to be one? Again, my name is Samson Buari. I currently work with Vetiva Advisory Services Limited, where a lot of you will know us more as Vetiva Capital Management Limited. We recently sort of restructured the entire organization and then carved out our investment banking division to now stand alone as an entity in itself. That implies that we now operate on a standalone basis and really just take support from the group wide perspective. When I say group wide, I'm talking about Vetiva Investment, Vetiva Capital Management Limited. And in Vetiva Capital Management Limited, we have a little bit of multiple subsidiaries. And there's a typical example that we use to describe who we are as a group, right? And what you would typically also find amongst most investment banks, not just in Nigeria and globally. We have other subsidiaries that include asset managers, trustees, stockbrokers, uh, amongst others. And essentially we all provide financial services. We sell financial products, and the way we describe it is this essentially. You know, imagine I'll just use a random name. I'll just pick someone at random. Sorry, I mean I'll just pick someone at random, and I'll pick Smart in this instance. Imagine Smart walk into an investment bank, and Smart has a business that produces cement, large scale cement. Sam is a multi-trillion naira business owner that has a business that produces cement. If Sam enters my shop, what can I sell to Sam? Um, I can introduce my asset managers to Sam to help Sam manage his fund, right? How do you optimize your fund? And when I mean optimize, how do you put your fund to the best use? That's what my asset managers do. They collect your fund and help you invest it in more secured financial assets, like equities, bonds. And I'm sorry if you're not familiar with any terms, it's perfectly fine. You can always ask any question. They invest in equities, bonds, and other financial assets. Those are financial assets. They're the same thing. They are similar to what I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with cryptocurrencies, right? And when I say similar, in terms of them being you invest in something and you expect return. That's my definition of similar. Of course, in risk level, they are way far apart, right? I mean, in cryptocurrency, financial, maybe currencies themselves, there's high risk, right? You all know what this idea of risk means. You can lose all your money. But in kind of business, we and other banks, so those kind of investments are safer. You never will ever lose all your money. They are regulated, highly regulated. So the industry is highly regulated, right? So those kind of investments we do, right? And like I introduce my trustees to you, and their responsibility is very simple. They keep trust on your behalf, right? I wouldn't go deep into what all those other guys does. I'm just giving you a sense of how we operate within the financial services. When you are drafting your will, you need a trustee to help you implement it. Or when you have some children and you want to start saving money for their future education. I want to ensure that if anything happens to you, they are taken care of. The best deal for you is to have a trustee. Those trusts will be written in their names, and the trustees will ensure no matter what your contract or your will has said, your trustees will ensure that your children get the best of education. That's their work. They ensure trust on your behalf. I can also introduce my stockbrokers to you. And what do they do as stockbrokers? They broker stocks, right? Buy and selling of stocks. They help you buy any stocks you really want to buy. Dangote Sugar, Dangote Cement, Access Bank, GT Bank, any stock at all. Or even if you want to buy bonds, even though they are called stockbrokers, they also help you. They also buy and sell bonds, right? Bond instrument. So essentially, in that's like a very short overview of some of our other subsidiaries and what they do. And this is what you also find in other houses: Cambika, BTC, Chapel Hill, United Capital, uh, Standard Chartered, you know, Afri Invest, any other financial services firm from an investment banking perspective. That's what you typically would find them do. And so, what do we do as an investment banker? Who are we as an investment banker? We some people say we can be two things, right? We provide very, sometimes very broad, sometimes very niche financial services, advisory services. I think that's the most important word there. We provide advisory services to institutions, which can be private institutions, organizations, and government institutions, uh, or government agencies, right? And the product we sell, we call our product, we actually really structure our product in multiple phases. Uh, we have products that are pure financial advisory, and that would include things like um, mergers and acquisitions. And what are mergers and acquisitions? If company A wants to buy company B, we can advise company B. Remember, company A wants to buy company B. So if I come in, I want to advise company B through the merging process or through the acquisition process. Company B, is a selling side. So I'm the sell side advisor in that instance, but I'm advising company B. Company A is the buying side. If I'm advising company B, I'm a buy side advisor because I'm advising company B. Note that both company A and I likely would not be able to advise company A and company B, because there would definitely be something you would refer to as conflict of interest, right? Because there's no way our interests would align, as company A wants to acquire company B. Company A is is looking at acquiring company B at the lowest price possible. Company B is looking at selling at the highest price possible. So ideally, you would then need two different advisors to work through that. That's what mergers and acquisition essentially is. Really just you know bringing two companies together to either merge together to become one. But in that instance, all those process, our regulator, who I will still talk about down the line, SEC, see them usually are the same, right? It's still an acquisition, because at the end of the day, if you're merging two companies together, one company has to survive, or you might decide to create a new company and you have entirely new company surviving, right? And I think there are popular acquisitions that you're probably aware of: Access Bank, Diamond Bank. For those of you that have banks, um, Access Bank acquired Diamond Bank. So they bought out all the assets and liabilities of Diamond Bank. And if you go out there, you see, you can just type scheme of merger, Access Bank, Diamond Bank. You see that scheme. A scheme is like an information memorandum about the transaction. It gives you every information you need to know about the transaction, right? If you find that scheme, you can take your time to read through, right? You will then understand how these mergers are structured. But that's by the way. We advise on mergers, and this is just financial advisory, right? We advise on things like share buybacks. If you hear that a company is doing share buybacks, what does that mean? I as a company can go to the exchange today. Dangote can say, you know what, this year we have made trillions uh, of naira in profit. I want to buy back some shares, right? So Dangote will go to the Nigeria Stock Exchange, well, of course, with with Security and Exchange Commission, with SEX approval. Dangote will go to Nigeria Stock Exchange and say, you know what, I want to buy back some shares, and give return value to shareholders. Because by the time you buy back shares, expectedly, the expected effect is that the share price and the value of the shares should go up. That's the reason why most people do share buybacks. Of course, there are other nuances I wouldn't want to put you guys through on, so that I don't bog you down. But again, there are other things that we use here share buyback for. Again, those are those that and other things are what we do in financial advisory. That is essentially what we do in financial advisory. Then we have a product called debt capital market. And in the debt capital market, that's why we advise through things like bond issuance, commercial paper issuance, and any form of debt-like securities. Remember what I defined securities for earlier? Okay, I don't think I defined it, but of course, simple giggling will show you securities are really just financial assets that gives you a sense of ownership in either a company. So that ownership can be in form of it then depends on the type of cash flows and the money you expect. How does that cash flow comes in? Is it a predefined cash flows where you get steady inflows every month that is debt-like securitized, or uh, is it a cash flow that is based on dividend, which is based on performance of the company? If you perform well, you get more cash flow. If you don't perform well, there's not much cash flow for you, and etc. So again, those are securities can do different features. Just a simple Google, right? Google search to show you what securities really is. And I'll come back to this. You notice I use the word search a lot, and I'll come back to the reason why I'm using the word search. I'll come back to that. So essentially, we advise through debt capital market, the debt capital market product. Uh, and please also note the use of product, right? And I'll come back to that again. And why do we use product to define? Because that's essentially what we sell. We are selling that services to you. How to be if Smarts then decide to say my cement company is robust, I want to expand my cement company to Port Harcourt. Currently we're in Lagos, and I want to expand that production to Port Harcourt. I want to be able to produce more cement in Port Harcourt so that I can capture the entire South market, right? Remember, if I'm in Lagos, it means that to transport my product to South, there's higher cost of transportation. Remember, business study, one of the tenants of businesses, you have to have a reduced, lower cost of transport is a major thing, right? Of course, cost of raw material, but let's assume that raw material is what it is. Another big thing is transport. So if I'm able to set up a plant in Port Harcourt, it means I can eliminate that transportation cost to the barest minimum, more profitable business for me. So how do I do it? I don't want to go into my balance sheet and just carry and again, anytime I mention, you can note it, you can ask any question, you can giggle it. A balance sheet is just saying, I don't want to go to my reserve of money. That's what I mean by that, right? Of course, I'm just using those star parlance in a more, well, the jargon in this instance. I don't want to go to my reserve and pour all the money I have into the project. I can get investors like Ajayi, John, Rita, Arabia, Ramonsele. I can get those investors' money together. You know, structure a product that will be in form of a debt product for them to be able to invest in me. That will then allow me to expand. So if I say, guys, I want to set up a construction, a cement production in Port Harcourt. I call in my, we call them. Let me use the word EPC, right? Who is an EPC for the site for tech related guy, for engineering guys? You probably understand who an EPC is, right? Essentially, they call them they are contractors, right? They are contractors that help you. They help you they help you implement your project, right? They are, just see them as contractors that helps you implement your project from start to finish. They oversee the entire process, right? The procurement process, the construction process, the engineering process. That's where the EPC comes from: engineering, procurement, construction. They oversee everything. So I get the EPC guys. Guys, can you give me a course of what this will entail? They give me a call to say it costs 10 billion, okay? And I'm like, okay, 10 billion, not a problem. I call Samson, who is an investment banker. Samson, can we raise 10 billion in the market? This is my financial statement. Hi, Samson. I take the financial statement, I look at it. What is your annual cash flow? Okay. What's your balance sheet like? Can you reasonably take 10 billion without putting yourself? And all this thing works as it works in real life, you know. If smart today, smart ends say 300,000 per month, right? That's your annual salary. And smart decides to go and take a loan of 3 million to pay back in say within a year. It implies automatically that smart will be paying, you know, close to 90 something thousand naira every month. You know, that means smart can still manage to pay back. That's I've think through. Smart earns 300,000. If we take a loan of 3 million, divide. Oh, sorry, my math is wrong. So let's use 100 million. Let's use 100 million. You take a loan of 100 million divided by 12. It's still roughly around 80, 90. He earns 300 million. I think he's able to take it. That means if Smart takes 100 million loan, 1 million naira loan today, Smart will be in a good position. Hmm? Please don't lose this trail of thought. I'm talking about Smart wanting to construct uh, a production plant in Port Harcourt. Smart reaching out to me as my financial advisor, as his financial advisor. And one of the products I can sell to Smart is my debt capital market product, which is in this instance we're looking at what type of debt capital market product would best fit for Smart production plant. Now, I was giving Smart personal life as an instance. If Smart ends, sorry, don't let me use Smart again. If John ends 300,000 per month and John wants to borrow 100 million from me, 1 million naira from me, I'm able to give it to John because I know he will be able to pay without stretching him. But what if John comes to me and say, okay, I want to borrow 3 million naira, 3 million naira, and your annual salary is, your monthly salary is um, is 300,000, which means your annual is 3.6. I might be averse to giving it to John because I know that once I give you 3 million, if I don't see that you'll be able to start any more salary in the next 3 months, or at least in the next 2 months, I know that you will struggle to pay me back. The same thing to a corporation. You know, if a corporation go out there to say they want to, if Dangote means, if Smart, if I look at Smart financial statement and I'm like, Smart, if you take this 100, this 10 billion or 10 trillion, whatever numbers you want to put, it's not material at this point. If you take this amount, your business will struggle because you're not generating enough cash flow. And remember that construct that kind of complex can take up to a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? So if I consider the fact that that construction plant you want to start, that production you want to start will not come on stream until like 2 years time. How do you want to service that debt? And when I say service that debt, it means how do you want to repay the debt over the course of that 2 years? Do you have sufficient cash flow as it is right now? If Smart say, if we then find out that Smart business does not have enough cash flow, we won't send Smart away, and that's our work as investment banker. You know, rather we'll sell another product of Smart, which I will go straight to now. And that product will be in two phases. It can either be equities or what we typically call a project finance. I'll come back to project finance again. Later I'll come back. I'll let's speak to equity. I will say, Smart, are you open to giving out some equities from your business rather than using debt? Because from what I can see in your books, you are unable to finance this project with debt. You won't be able to service or repay the debt. Remember, I'm simplifying things. There are thousands of ways that we can structure financial product to ensure that it fits into smart balance sheet. But I don't want to boggle you down with too much details. Let's just assume that I can't carry it. We go to equities. And what is equities? Just think of equities as a financial asset that gives you ownership, part ownership of a business. You know, it's an asset that gives you part of ownership of a business. So today, Smart 100% owns Smart Cement Enterprise. Smart Cement Enterprise. Our equity, if Smart is going to sell equities to shareholders, we can then take Smart Business to say, Smart, this is your business. Your business worth today. And this is how we structure our equities. We first carry out what we call valuation. So we value Smart Business. Is Smart Business worth today as it stands? Smart Business worth, say, 20 billion, and Smart wants to raise 10 billion. You can do the math. It means that Smart has to let go of certain percentage of his business. If a gas Smart then feel like, oh, Samson, that's too expensive. I don't think I want to let go of such a high level of ownership. You know what? I'm happy to just do a billion or two or three in equities. I want to do the rest in that. We can then go back to the table to say, okay, Smart is ready to do 3 billion. If we do equities 3 billion, that means, remember, oh, sorry, you don't have to remember, but the way equities are structured, right? Uh, you are not paying, you are not, there's no enforceable mandate, or there's no mandatory repayment for you. You only pay when we make profit and when you declare dividends. So if you buy MTN shares today, if MTN does not declare dividends, you are not getting a penny from MTN and you can't sue them. That is a risk you take as an equity holder in a company. So because the people that will be buying the shares from Smart will not have to sue him in case there's no cash flow. Smart is fine, is okay. But he knows that if he takes debt from any investor, you have to repay that debt. If you don't repay the debt, they can sue you. If you don't repay the debt, they can sue you. Right? They can sue you to court. They can force you to liquidate your business to give them their money. That's the nature of that. So we go back to our debt capital market team and say, guys, Smart is able to give up to 3 billion in equities. If we take 7 billion, will Smart Business still be able to handle it? And they say, oh yes, 7 billion with the cash flow that Smart is doing right now, we think it can handle it. Then we go to market to raise the debt, also go to market to raise equity. Essentially, that is the dynamics of the equity capital market and the debt capital market. You raise debt and debt-like securities, like commercial papers. Right? Commercial paper is also a very common form of funding for business. If Rita today is Rita runs a business, and a business is cash heavy, and for some reasons, Rita has procured a lot of inventories. Let me give you an instance. Say Rita is into the business of gadgets. She sells Apple gadgets. She's the sole distributor of Apple in Nigeria today, right? And Rita had stocking a lot of Apple products in her warehouse. And for some reasons, right, those products are not moving as fast as she would expect it to be. And Rita has some short-term, liabilities that she has to cater for. Payment of salary, payment of vendors, this and that. They're short-term liabilities. They're not debt-like. They are short. They're liabilities that if you don't pay them in a month, if you miss 2 months, 3 months, they just first shout, take you to court, or they won't even take you to court because they don't want to severe. Someone like Adeoluwa that who had run a business will let you know that you don't just take your customers or your buyer to court because of things like money. You give them time, you keep having conversations, you make it cordial because you know that over time their financial situation can get better and they will pay you, and you don't want to lose a customer because it's difficult to get a customer. So they won't want to take you to court. But if it is a debt, it's a different conversation entirely. But those short liabilities, how do you cover them? You can raise something called a commercial paper. And what's a commercial paper? It's a financial, it's a debt like it's a debt financial paper instrument that runs less than a year. So any debt facility that is between a month and like 9 months. Typically in Nigeria is between 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Between 3 months and 9 months. Most commercial paper, that's the requirement in Nigeria. So commercial papers are just they're short-term facility within 3 months, 6 months, 9 months that you can use to, you know, cure some of. And again, for instance, another example is if if Apple, so a prime example is just, Apple is releasing, say, um, a new brand of iPad. They'll be in the market. You know that they'll be in Nigeria very soon, and a lot of people has pre-ordered. Oh, we want this, we want it. Maybe not pre-order, because pre-order means, let's assume a lot of people has pre-order without paying cash. Let's use that example. Usually, you pay when you are pre-ordering. Let's assume a lot of people has pre-ordered without paying any form of cash. And you know that these people will surely pay. And if pre-order, like, say, a million Apple gadgets, Apple iPad, and each iPad is about 3 million. Let's just say 3 million. It means that you will need close to, sorry, if my math is not rough, you will need close to like maybe 3 trillion. Just let us use those numbers, yeah. Uh, and you don't have more than, say, 2 trillion, or let's say you need 500 billion, and you don't have more than, say, 400 billion. For, before I'm being accused, I'm throwing money around as if. But anyways, you need 400 billion, for instance, and you only have like 200 billion. You can go to the commercial paper market to raise the remaining 200 billion and use it to facilitate the purchase. Because let's assume that Apple will not give you their product without you paying. So it means that you have to pay before you can come and sell. And if you don't pay now, you might not get it because it is limited. So you front load it, you go to the market, you raise short-term capital for like, say, 9 months. You quickly carry that, because again, the way commercial paper are structured, you are not required. Usually, most commercial paper does not require any form of interest payment. It's discounted at zero coupon. Sorry, another jargon. Zero coupon, just means that the facility does not pay any form of coupon. They instantly discount it. So if, for instance, I'm raising 300 billion, I will be taking, say, a discount of that from the market, maybe 250 billion, right? That's a discount. And then by the time I'm to repay, I pay the full 300 billion. So the returns to investor is the difference, is the, we call it delta. That's another jargon. But the difference between um, the 250 billion and then the 300 billion, which is 50 billion. So you don't get to pay interest, just pay the full amount, the full value of the CP at the end of the cycle, or the life of the CP. So you take that CP, you're able to quickly procure Apple gadgets, and then you're able to sell to your customer, and you're fine. But imagine if you are unable to access, there's no market called a CP market. And CP market are always less expensive, because um, you it's short term. So if I raise capital in CP market for 20% due to the prevailing interest rate we have in Nigeria today, 20%, I'm not paying 20%, I'm paying a prorated amount, right? Which is maybe, if it's a 6 month facility, be one half of 20%, about 10%, roughly 10%. That's the returns I pay. Now imagine if there's no CP market and I have to go to the long-term market, which is like the bond market, to raise the fund. If you go to the bond market and you have to raise, and remember, CP is 20%. It means bonds, anything more than a year will be more than 20%, right? So let's say it's 25%, right? So it means that I will have to pay more. I'll have to pay more to go to the bond market. And it's going to be a long-term facility, which means I will then be paying for like 2 years, 3 years, something I can really just pay off within a year. So those are just the dynamics, right? That's what a CP, a commercial paper, is. Remember, we have spoken about financial advisory. I talked about mergers and acquisition, share buyback, financial restructuring. Those are like instances of financial advisory. Then we talked about debt capital market. I talked about bond. I just finished speaking about uh, commercial papers. There are varying type of other form of debt, right? But what you typically find, I think you should bother yourself about, what you typically find in this market in Nigeria today is just bond and commercial papers. That's what you find. So if you go there and Google, like, say, Dangote commercial paper or Dangote bond, MTN commercial paper, MTN bond, uh, who else? Any of those guys, really, any of the big corporations must have come one time or the other to raise bond or to raise commercial paper. Yeah, so you'll find those. Yeah, those are like typically type of debt instruments, right? To equities, we also touched about equities. I talked about, you having to let go of fund in your business for equities. You let go of fund in your business for equities, sorry, you have to have ownership in your business for equities. And so again, that's what equity is. And if I want to raise equity, how do I do that? Right? Let me just bore you with that. And it's very simple. Uh, once Smart has told me that, oh, I'm happy to give out certain percentage of my business in equity. I want to raise 3 billion in equity. The first thing I do is go to Sandbook, get some lawyers, prepare prepare a offering memorandum. And when I use the word offering, and you see a lot of word that flies around: prospectus, offering memorandum, information memorandum, chef memorandum. We use a lot, and they all means one thing. They are just information pack. They are all information packs that tells you about the offering. It can be a bond offering, it can be a commercial paper offering, it can be an equity offering, it can be a right issue, it can be a share subscription. And I'm sure very soon you guys will be hearing a lot about right issues. If you're truly interested in the financial market, I will assume that you are well aware of the requirement of bank to recapitalize. Who knows about the current recapitalization need of Nigerian banks as postulated or as required by CBN a few months ago, I think around March? Who in the room is familiar with that requirement? That banks are now required to increase their capital base depending on the license you're holding. Domestic license, international license. There are banks that hold international license like uh, Zenith Bank, GT Bank, even Union Bank. Who is anybody aware? If you're aware, can you raise up your hand? I can see uh, Ibrahim. Oh, great, Ibrahim. Let's Ibrahim. Tell me about what do you know about that requirement from the CBN and how much were they told to raise? Let me just test uh, your familiarity within the space, unless Ibrahim works for an investment bank anyway. But yeah, Ibrahim, or he works in the financial market, so he might know much about it.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah,
I
the CBN, the CBN recapitalization policy is that banks has to raise some bank has to raise 500 billion. And then we have other banks. We have national banks, and we have national banks to be 500 billion, and we have non-national banks. We have to be 200 billion thereabout. Then we have the non-interest bank also to raise, I think, about 50 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that is what I know about it. And also, this CBN recapitalization policy has also affected so many stocks in the market. So you can see Access Bank is trying to do right issue now. So many things has been happening. Thank you.
Ibrahim, are you open to telling us what you do? It would be good to also have a good sense of what you do. Is this something you're happy to say?
Yes, I'm very happy to say it because although I don't work in as investment banker, and I actually work as internal control, internal audit, and but I have interest in finance. So that is why I actually pick up interest in finance. So either
Okay, okay,
investment analyst or investment banking.
okay, okay. Thanks, Ibrahim. I'm sorry that I had to, but thanks for sharing that with us. So
Thank you.
again, guys, tenant number one, if you're going to take anything out of this space today, information is key. And when an investment banking firm is recruiting, there are two things they are control. They are very, very much they're interested. Are you familiar with the company? What do you know about the company? More importantly, are you commercially aware? Do you know what is happening within the industry? And if I say commercially aware of what's happening within the industry, an instance would be like the example that Ibrahim just gave. You are meant to know what's happening, those more recent activity. So when CBN, you know, required, or when CBN announced that the entire industry has to recapitalize, there was a wave of activity that kicked off in the equities capital market. And like Ibrahim said, it's a public knowledge. Ibrahim is aware of it, that certain banks are already within the industry. Certain banks are already contemplating. An example is the bank that Ibrahim has mentioned. Sorry, I might not be at liberty to talk about this at length, but example is what Ibrahim has spoken, has mentioned. They are already considering, as Ibrahim has also mentioned. So again, those are those are dynamics that you have to be familiar with. You have to follow the industry keenly. It shows interest. You have to understand what's happening within the industry. In fact, it's more interesting when you're a student. You're meant to, read financial news. And I think popular financial news in Nigeria, things like Nairametrics, ProShare.co, they provide you daily with financial news, what's happening within the financial market, and you're meant to follow them closely as possible. So again, just to take us back. So yeah, we provide financial advisory, and not also all investment banks typically provide financial advisory, debt capital market, equity capital market. And the last thing we do, and I'm using us as an example, so whatever I say about us is what you will typically find in all other investment banks, typically on the average. It can be wider. RMB can call it different names. Other banks can call it different names, but essentially it's just what they typically do. And the last thing is project finance. And what project finance means is, as it stands, is a type of financial structure that allows you to finance a project based on the expected cash flow of that project. So if Ibrahim then decide to say, or Ismail then decide to say, you see this project, I don't want to finance it with my cash flow. If I don't want it to touch my business at all, anybody that is investing in this project, I want them to invest on it on the basis of the expected returns of that project, or on the basis of expected cash flow of that project. And when I say expected cash flow, it means by the time I complete that project, I start production, I start selling, money start coming in. I want to be able to raise funds on the back of those money that will be coming in on the project, not on the entire business. So what would we do for Ibrahim? We set up something called a special uh, purpose vehicle, an SPV. The SPV will then be used to raise funds specifically for the project, sponsored by Ibrahim, sponsored by Smart, rather, Smart company, right? Smart cement industry. But it will be specifically for that project, right? So we structure that SPV. That SPV will then be used to go to the market to raise debt capital, or even any form of capital. But that SPV then becomes a company. That SPV becomes a legal entity in itself, by itself, not relating. We have detached it completely from Smart, such that if that business in Port Harcourt fails, investors will not have recourse to Smart business. They won't come and attack Smart to say, oh, you have used our money, we want our money back. Smart's liabilities will be limited to its assets in that SPV. And that is what project finance is all about. It's a form of financing that gives limited recourse to the business that is sponsoring the project. So that way, you can raise funds for a project on the pure merit of that project. And that is what I'll just try to reduce, so that again, I'm not able to measure, because I don't know who everybody in the room is. I know that Ibrahim could understand to some extent what I'm talking about, right? Because maybe his company has done something similar to most of the things I'm saying. And as an internal auditor, most of these things will pass through his desk. So, but I don't know who everybody else is. We have close to I think close to 40 people in this room, right? So I would not want to assume that we're at the same level, but that is what investment banking broadly is. We provide advisory services for companies on various financial services activity, or financial activities. And financial activities could range from, I want to raise capital, to I want to merge down that company. I want to acquire another company. I want to sell my shares on stock exchange. I want to exit my business. Smart could say, Smart could say, hey, Samson, you see, I've been running this business for over 40 years. I want to retire to my village and really just relax. Can you help me by find responsible people that I can sell the business to? That's an exit. Smart want to leave the business, want to exit the business, right? And when at the point where Smart want to exit the business, we can come in to help Smart value the business. Oh, Smart, your business worth 100 billion naira. You know, once we value the business, and when I say business what, I'm talking about the equity value of the business, right? And let me go back if I had sorry. I have derailed. 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 Okay, I think these are questions, right? I'll just then start answering these questions now that I've given you enough background. In the next 10 minutes, I'll run through all those questions and answer them. So before I move to answering all the questions that are, so Adelu had shared some questions with me that I should walk through. So I thought it's good for me to give you a background. And I think I've spent a lot of time to just give you a sense of background of what investment banking is. And I'll give you some, if for those who will be interested, I will ask Adelowa to just collate the names of those who will be interested, who really wants to know more. And then, so we are not sending you information that are irrelevant to you, but for those who will be interested, Adelowa could send you some additional information that would allow you to have a better sense of what investment banking generally and broadly is. Um, so yeah, before I answer the questions, I will just take a pause and check. Is there any question based on what I've discussed now? Let's take one or two questions to even be sure that people are following and people understand. It's fine if you don't understand. It's fine. There's a lot of jargons that I've been speaking since. And when I say jargons are as defined, unrelated English that are used that are not in normal parlance are just specific to a certain industry, right? Most of those jargons are specific to the finance industry. So is there any question at all? You can raise up your hand, you can mute yourself, you can ask, you can speak. Before I then go straight to all the questions I have here, I think a couple of them and then we'll run through it. Tolu, can you please go ahead?
Yeah, good evening, Samson.
Hi, Tolu.
Yeah, can anyone hear me?
Yes, please. We can hear you clearly, loud and clear.
Yeah, this section. So I joined in on it.
So Tolu, there's a crack in the background. Your voice is not coming as clean as we would expect it to be.
Okay, I'm trying to actually.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah,
sure. Please go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. We'll try to pick it
Yeah,
up. If we
so
can't pick it up, I'll let you know.
I joined in. I was going to ask, I was going to ask how you get investment.
Okay, Tolu, in the interest of time, if you can hear me, Tolu, in the interest of time, do you want to drop it as a message?
Okay, I think that's
Drop it as a message. So while you write your message, let's take Desire. Okay, so after Desire, I can also see Lola's hand is up. So Desire, please, quick one. Go ahead.
So good evening.
Good evening, Desire.
Oh, fine. Actually, thank you for your time and everything, and the whole of the teaching and the rest of them. I sincerely appreciate. My questions are on this. All these debt instruments. They mention something like coupon rate, effective rate, all of these jargon. I thought you were going to go a little bit into the details of that because I've been back in my class, but we actually do not talk about all those things in class, but they still come in our exam. So if you could just give me a little bit of information on those part of it, and then the IPO. this IPO, how did they initiate it? Of course, they first of all come with this what you could just call information generally. They'll come with that information. Then afterwards, how do they finalize the whole of that as an IPO before it becomes a share in the market and stuff like that? I don't know if you get my questions right.
Sure.
Please
Sure.
shed more
I
light on
think
this, please.
okay. I'll come back to that. Let me take Lola's comments before I then address all the questions together. Lola, please go ahead.
Good evening, Samson. Good evening,
Hi,
everyone.
Lola.
Hi. So basically, I've been listening to everything you said, and most of the terms you said, I don't know about them. So I just want to ask basically, like for someone that wants to go into investment banking now, like is it necessary to know it all right now? Like should I be looking to learn all these terms in my head, or is it that when I get the job, I'll be put through all this process? Is that expectation there from the company?
Okay. I get your question. I think we should be able to deal with that. Just a sec. Yanulua, please go ahead.
Good evening. I thank you for what you said. I I joined late, so I don't know. I joined around 5:10. I don't know if you've mentioned this. So who can be an investment banker? Now I'm a crop production and protection student. I've been hearing about investment bankers. I know what they do. No, not in full. I mean, I've heard and seen some, how they buy shares, good people make deals and that stuff. And in fact, I've even seen them in movies. I know movies are not really that real, and I really like it. First of all, I'm not a finance student. I'm not in the financial aspect in school. I want to ask, can I, what's it called? Can I be an investment banker, or who are the kind of people that can be an investment banker? I think that's just the question I need to ask.
Okay. Great. Wilson. Okay, let's take Wilson's question. Okay, Wilson, please go ahead. Sorry, guys. I just want to take all the questions and then I will address them one by one. Wilson, please go ahead.
All right, good evening. Sorry, I just joined late because I was occupied. So I just joined like about 5 minutes ago. So
Not a
my own
problem.
question was, this investment banking, are there like certificate that someone can acquire, professional certificate? I don't know if you have spoken about it because I was thinking of doing maybe CFA, but then no, I'm looking at CFA when I was an undergraduate. That okay, when I get out of school, I'll do it. But with the current FX situation has kind of limited me to if I can see other certificates that can help me in starting the investment banking career. So I don't know if there are any other certificates you are aware of. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so let me quickly go through all the questions. I will start with Tolu. How can one get investment banking associate role? Okay. Okay. I think. Okay. I would like to end that with that question, Tolu. So yeah, let me just take the orders. The question I have here is the first one. Another one is the terms, right, and what an IPO entails. Yeah. So Desire, you're right. A lot of the things a lot of the terms we use, you might have heard of them before as an accounting student. And the truth is, finance is I used to define finance as that midpoint between accounting, economics, business administration. It's just that lifeblood that connects all of them together. And I'm sure you must have taken a course in financial management, and that's where you will have heard of a lot of all this finance jargon, as I have been using, right, jargon. You do not, and this also goes to the second question. The reason why I wouldn't use this call, this 1 hour 30 minutes to our call, there are a lot of those components, right? Those financial terms IPO, mergers and acquisition, uh, what valuation is, this kind of cash flow, valuation methodologies. There are a lot that we can't finish in this 1 hour, 2 hour class. But there are trainings and recommendations I can use, I can make that will help you, close that gap. But I would not be doing you I will not be doing you any favor. And just to note, Priscilla, your video is on in case it is not something you intend to do. But it's fine if you really want to leave it on. Just call your attention. I it will not be effective to come to this class and use what the goal I had for this class was just to introduce you to what investment banking broadly is, right? If I have to go into details of what those items you just mentioned or those terms, financial management terms like, corporate finance and all those things, right? A lot of people will also get lost, and it will then become a teaching class. Then I will probably just bore all of you out, So what we can do is to recommend, and maybe after this conversation, I will recommend some trainings that I think you would find helpful, some materials that I think you will find helpful. Now, that flows. What is an IPO? An IPO is an initial public offering, right? Um, it is the first offering that a company that's coming to the market is going to be to carry out, right? If a new company is coming to the market today, will register their equities, they want to raise funds. That first step of raising equity from the public is what an IPO is. It's an initial public offering, right? I don't want to go deep into that again to save time. But again, I will recommend some material, some training that you can do. Now that flows to the last question: should I learn them all? You can't even Samson, Buari. I don't know them all. I haven't learned them all, so you can't learn them all. But you're expected to have basics. You're actually expected to have basics, to understand basics. And when I say basics, you know, as basic as there are some things that you just expected to know. And I'll give you an instance. You should understand. You don't need to be able to carry out valuation of a business, but you should understand how a business is being valued at the surface of it. And let me give you an instance. If you go to, and I don't know if Lola, you're still in school, but if you're a graduate, and apologies, and this is by no means to offend you, but if you're a graduate and you are at this level, and I'll give you the reason why you have to start doing certain things or learn certain things if you really want to break into the industry. If you go to a typical university today, let me say University of Lagos or Obafemi Awolowo University. If you meet a part 1 or part 2 or 200 level, 100 level student who is interested in finance, there are chances that they already know how to value a business. So I'm saying to you that when I have people trooping out of university, they have a good understanding of what investment banking is all about. Like what I just explained to you right now, I have had this knowledge since I was in like maybe part 2. We use parts in my university. It's like maybe part 2, part 3, part 4. I know what these things are. This thing I just try to explain to you in I was an economic student. I never did any of I never did accounting. I never did anything like financial management. I learned a lot of those things on my own. You know, component of a balance sheet. I had to pick up those things on my own. What an income statement is. I never did anything in accounting. So my point is, there's that fundamental requirement that you're familiar with. Not not you don't need to have like a full sense of what it's all about. You don't need to, but you need to be familiar with those terms, right? And you pick them up typically. Really, you just pick them up. It could even be like, oh, let me take a course. So there are a lot of courses on Udemy today that talks about investment banking and what they do. That $13, $20 course can give you a comprehensive overview of all these things. You're expected. So it's just that expectation. You don't have to know it all, but you have to know the basics. And this now rolled into the first questions. You will need to be able to take those courses to put you in a good position. And it's never too early or too late. In fact, someone like Ibrahim that is trying to break into investment banking or corporate finance, such training would allow him to further groom what he has known already to put him in a good position. And these are trainings that you can take within a month as a working professional. 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, some 4 hours in the weekend. You can get this training out of the way, and it helps you to just bring you up to speed about what the investment banking is all about. What is valuation? What is an IPO? What is financial analysis? You get all this idea with all those trainings. You find a lot of this training. I think Udemy you find trainings on Udemy, you find trainings on the other options really. And there's also this Edu Bridge, right? Interestingly, myself and Adeolo, I think that's how I met Ade. We're both graduates of Edu Bridge, right? And again, I am not trying to sell Edu Bridge to you. I'm just giving you instances of trainings that you can take that would allow you. And I think EduB, for instance, structure like weekend program that you would then go through like a 2 month and 8 weeks program that is expected to just at least run you through the basics. And because the people that will be teaching you, if you choose to go through the investment banking route, the people that will be teaching you are investment bankers. You can also then get to form that relationship with them, get to know what they do, ask more questions. As you are taking such a training, you're also doing an Udemy training by the side. Again, it can be tedious for professionals, right? Because you are working, maybe you already have a family. It can be very tedious, but those are the kind of that's the cost. That's the cost you have to bear. For students, it's a bit less difficult because you are still a student and you have a bit more time to put yourself in a good position to break in. But I think Lola, because you don't have to learn it all, but I would recommend you, in all honesty, to join my team today. There's no requirement that you have to know what investment banking is. The idea is you will learn on the job. But because it is now very competitive, very, very competitive. And unless you are a superstar, you probably finish with a first class, you have a sterling experience where you're working, and it's obvious that you are a superstar to everybody, right? You just need to then brush up and then start throwing your CVs around. But if the case is that you are not necessarily academically competitive, because the first level is to screen using academics. So if you're not necessarily academically competitive, I would recommend that you take out a month or two. And it's a marathon, guys. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So strategize, take out a month, 2 months. If it's 4 months you require to take a course, take a training like EduB training, maybe like 50K or 70K. I don't even know how much to charge now for the entire program. Take a training like EduB training, buy a course on Udemy or any other useful course for investment banking, financial analysis, bury yourself in it, see it as like you are doing professional course for like 3 or 4 months. Just bury yourself into that process. And once you are done burying, and quite frankly, there is no, in as much as you are not boxing yourself into the old, like, I have to work for Stanbic, I have to work for Chapuyu, I have to work. If you're not boxing yourself into the old, or I have to work for the big names, your chances are very, very. I'll give you, and when I'm done, I'll give you an instance on even how I got into Vertiva. And it's very funny, right? So your chances are very high because you didn't take it a step at a time. You first, oh, this is where I am today. I take a training and I buy some other training. I spend my weekend or free time during the week. I just use them to go through because I want to do investment banking, or I want to do asset management, or I want to do sales and trading. I want to do stock brokerage. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to sit down, walk myself through the entire process of what it requires to be an investment banker, a stockbroker, or a financial analyst, the case may be. Take it again. I can't overemphasize this. Don't rush the process. And I think this will speak more to Lola's question. Don't rush the process. Just take it a step at a time. Go through that learning process. By the time you're done with your 3 month, 4 month process of you will have had a very extensive understanding of what investment banks are about, the component, and you will, when you're done with the training and everything is now on your CV, and then you start shooting your shot. So all there are a lot of big banks, smaller banks, we call them boutique, right? You'll find smaller banks all around that are springing up. In as much as what they are doing is corporate finance, and they have transactions, just join them and start learning, because that's the best way for you to start learning. Join them, start learning. You can do like a 6 months with them to learn as much as you can, and then you start putting your CV to even higher firms. So you start from a tier three banks, a tier three. I'm just giving you strategies here for those who are not traditional and you have been in the industry for a while and you want to cross and you are not seeing opportunity with the bigger banks, because of course, if those ones are recruiting, they will likely want to recruit from other banks than recruiting people that are not bankers, because I want to have people on my team that are able to execute. I want people to be able to do. So imagine Ibrahim today, if you want to hire, be honest with yourself. If I, Samson, who is an investment bank, has no knowledge of internal control or auditing or anything, I come to you today with my CV and say Tolu, who has worked in a probably smaller firm to yours and he has done some internal control, some auditing. Intuitively, there is no argument about the fact that you go for Tolu. It's just basic. There is no, because you don't want to bring me onto your team and then I'm giving you a problem. You want someone that will come to your team and make your life easy, right? So intuitively, there is no, you just want to go for Tolu. Like, see, guy, come. You already know this thing. And that's how it works across board, even for investment banking. So the approach, the strategy you can use for those who are already working. I will talk about people that are still in school, but for those who are already working, the strategy I would say you should use is identify trainings that you can do, buy some online courses that you can take, take those courses, take that training side by side for like 3, 4, if I even if it is 6 months. Remember, it is not a marathon. There's no age limitation. You're right. I know a lot of people that moved from a tier two bank to lead a team in a tier one bank in Nigeria today. I know a lot of them, and where they spend quite a number of years in that tier three bank, and they've learned a lot. And what they have learned, and through that, that's when they did their CFA, their CIS, their ACCA, and because most of those banks too would also, some of them, they just did what they have to do. And I'll talk about, so I think the next thing I'll then talk about is, let me talk about certification before I talk about who can be an investment banker. For certification, I think who can be an investment banker will likely be the last one, because you're a student, and I think I will probably have one or two. Well, I was a student, we'll call it OT. I'll give you one or two OTs that you can use, right? Pardon me for that. But anyway, certifications. ACCA can be expensive. ICANN can be expensive. ICANN, ACCA, CIS. The best certification you can take, I'll be honest with you, is CFA. But where you can't afford CFA now, what is the next best alternative if you want to be an investment banker or a stock CIS? And this is if you are thinking of Nigeria though, Nigeria do CIS, and this is it. CIS is meant to be our own Nigeria CFA. CIS is Nigeria CFA. So if you go to CIS, you already have understanding of SEC rules and regulations. And when you know SEC rules and regulations in my industry, you're already on good paths. You're already almost there. You already, because you might hear a lot of financial jargon, valuation, financial modeling. I do 80% of my work is not that. In fact, that's just 30% of my work. But the truth is, or 20% of my work. But the truth is, you have to know them. You know, it's like you're an auditor, you're an internal auditor. I don't know if there's any accountant in the room here. You're an internal auditor, or you work with KPMG, and you are now a manager, or you are an associate. You are all, if you work as an internal accountant, you agree with me that for those accountants, you don't need to. You probably won't be preparing trial balance, or there are some things you won't be preparing, but you have to know them, because if push comes to shove, if you are required to do it, it's the basic tenet of your business. Debit and credit. You debit this, your credit this. You have to know those basic stuff. not like you use them every day, but they're like the basics of your business, and that's what financial modeling valuations is to my business. For investment bankers, you need to know them. You don't necessarily you won't necessarily be using them on a daily basis, but you need to know them. So yeah, that is it for certification. I would recommend for those who are looking for certification, if you want to like do something real quick within a year or two, sorry, and that will be very relevant to Nigerian parents, just quickly do CIS. It's less expensive, takes less time, and you can probably afford it. CIS is best. Up next, in terms of affordability, remember I said overall best in terms of how I will classify them, that you would need them in my space, how I would describe them. I would say ACCA, CFA, ACCA. I will put CIS ahead of ICANN for a few reasons. I'll put CIS ahead of ICANN because as a financial analyst in the investment banking or in the investment terrain in Nigeria, CIS is more relevant than ICANN. Unfortunately, that's the truth, right? So so if you're looking at it from affordability, I would say just take CIS, take those other smaller trainings. When you then get to the space, when you start earning some good money and you're able to balance it, you can start saving for. And interesting, most of the top firms refund your CFA exam. So if you pass, they refund you. You can use the refund to do the next stage. That's another strategy. So yeah, so that's where ACCA, CFA. If you don't have a lot to throw around, you can start with CIS. It's the same thing. You learn. You can. If I can, a lot of people use CFA packs to study for their CIS. So CIS is a good one for you to consider. I would say you should take CIS. Now, before I talk about this last question here, let me speak to okay, what's the requirement for recruiting president in investment banking? That apart from background in accounting, yeah, I said I'll talk about this, but let's chill. A quick question. You know how there is a big four audit, does that? Yeah, so there's big four audits. We don't have big four investment banks, but we have leading investment banks in Nigeria. And I will be proud because, of course, I won't put my company at the bank. I will say we are number one because we are number one. And I can give you 10,000 reasons why Vertiva is number one. Anyway, you had likes of Vertiva, you had like of Stambik, you had likes of Standard Chartered, you had likes of uh you had likes of Chapel Hill, Afri Invest, United Capital, First Bank Quest. Those seven, just a quick, just looking at it real quick, right? I might be wrong, and apologies. I've not rated any in any order, right? I've not rated any of them in any order. But those seven appears to be like in terms of volume of transaction, Mary Stem, in terms of volume of transactions, right? That they are leading. Let me also use that word, that they are leading, because in within investment banking, there's something called the lead issuing house. We are referred to our license for it to be an investment bank. A licensed investment bank requires an issuing house license in Nigeria. Yeah, so that'll take it a few minutes. It requires an issuing house license. So our license is an issuing house. We are regulated by SEC. So in every transaction, there's a lead issuing house. There are joint issuing house. So in terms of the volume of leading transactions, those are like seven major. So you can call them big seven, right? But there are no technical time in terms of big four parlance, right? There are no. We don't have that in finance, but they are leading institutions in globally. You have like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Evercore, a lot of them really. Those are like the leading companies also globally, but not in time. But they're just that they call them bulge brackets because they offer a lot of investment services, right? They are not, and they are not, they are not specific to a particular product. They offer all the product, like I mentioned to you: project finance, debt capital market, equity capital market, financial advisory, financial. They call it financial advice. Some people call it anyway, but yeah, they offer that full bracket of they're not that big four. To this next question, and I'm trying to just run over it. The next question says, So apart from here, how do you break in? So I know Ade had worked with in consulting before. My memory can be fuzzled, right? But I know that when I did Edubridge with Ade, he yeah, okay. When I did every with Ade, we were doing investment banking together. Ade was not a business student or an economic student. You know, he was a science student. I think engineering. I can't remember. It's been a long while. But my point is, in fact, a lot of people that thrive. So I'll give you an instance. My former um, chief operating officer, Dr. Bob, in his blessed memory, was a doctor. My former head of department, who is currently the MD of United Capital, Badebo Adenrede, is a doctor, is a medical doctor. We have a lot of engineering students, law students. In fact, on my team today, if I pick a quick view of my team, I have a chemical engineering student on my team. I have an English literature student on my team. I have economics, I have accounting, I have insurance. Someone that if I'm head of the department right currently studied insurance in Unilag. I don't know what is it insurance? Is it insurance or is that an analytical name they use for something? It's insurance related. It's not insurance. I've forgotten now. But hey, the point is, you do not need to be a finance or accounting student to be in finance. That's a joy and interesting thing, because finance is not necessarily something that you have to go to. Yes, people go to school for 5. Please don't take me out of context. People go to school for 4 years to study finance, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Unlike, say, you want to be an economist, there are no two ways around it. You have to have studied. Yeah, actuarial science. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If I pronounce it wrong, please help me understand. But yeah, that's the name. That's the name. Olutade like, but that's what he studied. And if you're mentioning people in this industry today that knows what they're doing, you can count up to like 4 or 3 within his rank that you will mention today, because he has been in the space for like 10 over 10 years, and you understand what's happening within the industry. Anyway, so yeah, but back to the point I was trying to make. I think you do not need to be a science student if you can follow that simple step I've given to you. That simple idea I just sold to you, how to break in. You can. You just have to be patient. Trust me. People are moving, and if people are moving, there would always be a recruitment opportunity. If you are well positioned, and the way you have to be well positioned is first understand the basics. At least have a sense of what the industry is all about. You don't want to look like you don't even know. So it's like if you want to be a medical doctor, okay, medical doctor is true, but just imagine a medical doctor that does not. In fact, before you can even go to the school of medicine, right? Nigeria is a bit different, but before you can go to school of medicine to study, the simple expectation is you take there's an exam you have to take, and I don't know. I've not taken the exam before, so let's use law. Let's use law. For you to be a lawyer, they're just basic stuff that you're expected to know to become a lawyer. That's why before you go to Nigerian law school, you must have studied law for 4 years or 3 years abroad, right? So, or 5 years rather, or 3 years abroad. You must have studied law for that long before you can go to Nigerian law, but before you can go to the school of law or then court of bar, whatever that's called. But it's the same thing with finance. You need that basic. So back to the last question, please just take that. It can be tedious, but get into courses like it. And I know there are other people. I know there are other people that also offer that kind of course. But like I know the EduBridge comes to mind. So and I will also pitch EduBridge because I was once an EduBridge student, and I know that they try their best, right? Everybody can only try their best. They try their best to give the best to the students, right? And I know there are other people in the industry can also research about. So do those courses for like 2 months, and the 5 courses with Udemy they can take along it for like another 2, 3 months, 4 months. Once you are allowed that 3, 4 months, and within that period, you're also reading financial news. You're following Nairametrics. You're following ProShare.co. You're reading them. You're consuming them. You're getting familiar what's happening within the space. For that period, you then start. Once you get to third month, you start networking with people within the industry. Hey, I'm open to this move. And another thing, for more senior people, you might have to take pay cuts. you know, investment banking pays well. Quite frank, I'll be honest with you. We in Nigeria today, if you're selecting an industry that pays on the average, that pays better than most people on the average, we don't pay like oil and gas, but on the average, on the very average, investment banking pays well, and they pay you as your experience level increases. So the difference is very significant. So if you are starting, you can be starting with maybe 100,000 and 150,000, 200,000, 250,000. That's like they're starting for most people, 100, 150. If you're already earning 250 or 300 somewhere or even 400 and you want to cross investment banking, there are chances, and I must warn you, there are chances that because you do not have prior experience, I wouldn't advise you to start pushing for a role that will give you a similar salary, especially with a smaller firm, because they will likely not hire you because you don't have the kind of experience that will fit you in. You might have to start afresh, and that means taking a pay cut, right? So uh, that's another consideration. You might have to take a pay cut. Is a very significant consideration, but I think you also need to know. Let's see, yeah, that's it. You don't need to be a science student. If you are still a student, a very good one. Ian, what's the name of your school? You can drop it as a message, on as a chat in the chat box. You can drop the name of your school. But why you drop that? Let me. Ah, okay, great fair. Okay, excellent. So Ian, in your school, there's an organization called the Student Finance Student Finance Club. I used to be a member of that club, right? And I know that every day, year in year out, they try their best to provide information to their members around investment banking, consulting, etc. A good place to start for you as a student in OAU is to join that organization. That's a good place for you to start. If you're already in your final year, yeah, great. If you're already in your final year, it is not too far for you to even start. Maybe you can't join again if you're already in your final year, right? And what you can do is to follow the step I've laid out earlier. And again, to recap the process for breaking in, identify trainings you can take. I've recommended EduBridge. Please do your research, find out other trainings that would offer the same thing, speak to people within the industry. I might be biased. Oh, great. You're 100 levels. Excellent. Excellent. You might want to reach out to them. If you're unable to get a hold of them, you can reach out to me. I can connect you with some of their escorts. Anyway, and this goes across other students in the room. Any schools you are, if there's a state, if there's a club, there's a society, in Unilag, they are called the Investment Society. In other schools, like I think Uniben is SFC, in Ipadon, SFC. You reach out to the SFC, the finance club in your school, join them. It's always a good place to start because you then now be working with students that have the same mindset as yours. You guys want to achieve it. And smart. So Yanolua, let me I think the last set, not the set, even the set, the current president is a microbiology student. Maybe that's another one to also mention to you to allay your fear. And I think he got an offer with a global bank. So now, once it's done in school, he's traveling outside Nigeria to start with a global bank, one of the leading banks outside Nigeria. The former president was a medicine student, a medical science student, right? I think, well, yeah, it was in medical sciences, and I think he was studying medicine. So my point to you is, you do not need to be a finance accounting. You don't have to be in accounting. You don't have to be in economics, business administration to be an investment banker. As a student, 111, fantastic. You're fantastic. You can start where you are by joining the organization. And I'm happy to also have a separate conversation with you if you want, right? Because again, I think you just starting and you've been in this space today. I think it's a great one that you can leverage so that in the next 3 years, uh, you are well positioned. That there is no bank. Like I mentioned to you, I have decided to be an investment banker. So I was in on 200 level fourth semester. So everything I was doing, every single thing I was doing was setting my pace towards that level. So it means that by the time I was done in school, it was no brainer. I never applied to a big four. I never applied for a concert. I never applied to any other institution. I was just very focused on what exactly I wanted, right? And that's the power of now. There's people say, oh, you will miss out on other opportunities. Well, again, for me, I just believe in once you're able to decide on what career path you want to follow, decide if you're in university, you're already in that state where you can decide on what you want to do. So just make that decision and go for it, right? Because at that time you're able to direct all your energy. So imagine you having to learn. You before you graduate from school, you already have a fastest understanding of most of the concepts about investment banking. When you graduate, you're a hot cake. Of course, your academics has to be very hot and excellent. You put your very good effort to academics, and but yeah, we can catch up later to discuss what's different between being an investment banker, investment analyst, financial analyst. An investment banker is someone who works within investment banking. It's just a definition. A student, someone who is studying in a university or in a school. You know, an investment analyst can be an investment banker can be so usually the term investment analyst is used for people in that does investing like private equity fund managers who invest in they usually call them investment analysts because they analyze potential investments. That's why they use the word investment analyst. The words are very intertwined, interchangeable, but that's why they use the word investment analyst. We are all financial analysts because we analyze financials. An investment analyst analyze because before, if I work in private equity, and again, that's another space entirely, private equity, venture capital. I will send you a book that actually covers this entire space, right? I would say it's a bit voluminous, but if you read the summary, the initial summary, I think it's good enough for you to capture what I'm really talking about. So we are all financial analysts. It's just that people. So for instance, if I set up a firm today, so I'll give you an a company called Alpha Africa. They offer services similar to investment banking, but they are not an issuing house. So for you to be an investment bank in Nigeria, you have to be an issuing house. So if you offer investment banking services, you're not an issuing house. Typically, you wouldn't be an investment banker in that space. You'd be a financial analyst or corporate finance analyst. So, sorry, investment banker is just an investment bank, but someone that works in investment bank, investment manager, analyst. It depends on how you want. People use it interchangeably, but I think the right usage will be an investment analyst is someone that analyzes investments, and typically you're in a VC space or you're in a private equity space, and VC are people that invest in startups. Private equity are people that invest in growth companies that are not matured but they are still growing. That's what private equity does. They invest different form of investment. Can be debt, can be equity. Anyway, that's that. Recap the process of breaking in. For breaking in, like I had mentioned, it's really very straightforward, right? Um, if you're a student, start now, right? Start taking. You might not be able to take the likes of external trainings because they might be too expensive, but start by joining an organization, right? If your school have an organization like a finance club or a finance society or an investment society, start by joining them. That's a good way to start. And also helps you building extracurricular and building some leadership skills. You're improving your communication skills. They are very important. Your ability to communicate, to speak with people, right? I don't see myself as a good communicator. There are people that communicate a lot better. People that a lot better. And a way to improve that is really by joining society and give it. Now, that being said, decide very early if investment banking is what you really want to do. And the way you can decide to read about other finance related stuff, investment banking, investment management, asset management, uh, uh, stock brokerage, sales and trading. You have to then decide which one do I want to do. in all these ones, right? If you then come down to say, you know what, I want it to be difficult at first, right? Like learning how to play the piano. You will agree with me. If any one of you plays any musical instrument here, you know that starting is extremely difficult. It's just breaking that ice. Once you break the glass, you know, and then you just become an expert all of a sudden. So start where you are now as a student, join those institutions, start taking free trainings that you have access to, FMVA, training material, join competitions, right? When I was a student, I represented OAU in the annual CFA investment research. And it was helpful, very helpful, especially in building my technical skills, right? Because then I was in part 3, going to part 4. I think when I was part 4, so for part 4 is 400 level, yeah. We had to build the financial model of Flour Mills of Nigeria, FML, value Flour Mills of Nigeria, and then do an investment recommendation where we wrote like a 10-page investment report, extensive, did a presentation to people, and then we presented, to people who are already investment managers, leaders within the industry, research analysts, research associates, right? So that training was helpful in building my skills when it comes to financial modeling, valuation, writing, and all. So and I was going to give you guys a bit of my story, very quick one, very very short, right? Part 2, I decided I wanted to do investment banking. I started applying to global banks, right? I applied to Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the cut, right? And again, I just couldn't make the cut because there are people that were better than me. As simple as that, right? But I kept pushing because I was sure that was what I wanted. So all through my time in school, I was applying. I remember I did internship in part 1. I did internship in a company called Accenture. They've left Nigeria now. In part 2, in part 3, I did internship with a company called Greenhouse Capital. Greenhouse Capital is a venture capital arm of Venture Gardens Group. Yeah, in Ikeja. And that's a long story. Interestingly, I did an unpaid internship. I couldn't get a paid internship for that summer, but I did an unpaid internship, which means I was working without being paid. I lobbied, struggled, wrote essays, had interviews to get an unpaid internship. Let that sink in. Like, I literally had to write a comprehensive essay about Aila Credits. I remember vividly the name of the company I was looking at. Remember, it's a venture capital, so they invest in startup. Aila Credit was a credit company that offers loan facility to people that are working class people, essentially. I had to do a research on them, did analysis and recommendations if they should invest. I was just a part 223 students when I did all those work to get into an unpaid internship role for a month, right? But of course, it was helpful to me. It was a work experience. I learned, I learned from it. It was tedious because I wasn't being paid. I had to finance myself. Not everyone can, but I'm just telling you the extent at which you can go to get what you want if you really want it, right? Then when I got to part 4, I did that CFA research thing. It worked well for me. I still didn't get any offer in a global bank because I was applying every year, consistently every year, but I still just didn't get an offer. Then when I finished school, right, what was available for me? I couldn't get into an investment bank directly, right? I got a role in Stanbic, but it was operational role. I quitted after a month because, of course, it was investment banking operations. I thought I needed that experience because I need to understand what the operation guys do. And I think till now, it helps me that appreciate the people that are doing the back end work for us because I've been there. I know what they do. I know how they do their work, right? I've been there. I was there for like a month, and it was helpful for me to appreciate them. After I left there, I started this EduBig program, right? And I think that's why I met Adelo, as I mentioned earlier. And then I got an offer with AfroInvest on a research role. Now, listen to this. Investment research is different from investment banking. They are way different. They are not the same thing. But for me, I know that doing investment research would be a good way for me to own my writing skills, which I think at that time I thought I needed to improve on. I joined the research. It was like a 2-month program. I joined the research. And within that period, because of my consistency, and I keep saying this till today, there is no investment bank that I applied to that invited me for an interview in Nigeria that I didn't get into. There is none. No matter how what the competition is. In fact, till today, there are roles I applied to that people who are far better than me from academics perspective. People who have actually even gotten into great institutions today that if I apply, they won't probably pick me. I'm trying to create a narrative here, but I still beat them in every of those process. And do you know why? Because I made that early decision. And every time I go into an interview, it sets me apart. So people that are naturally better than me from academic perspective, that are naturally better communicator than me, I tend to be able to beat them every time. Not because I am better than them, but because I am more informed than them. But because of the kind of experience I bring to the conversation in every interview. And for you to get to that point, it has to be a decision you've made. It has to be something you have been putting yourself into year in. Remember how long I've been applying to investment banks? It means I've been learning about investment banking from part two. By then, by the time I enter my first interview, I remember it was at United Capital. By the time I entered that first interview, and I think what even happened? Yeah, for a long story. But by the time I entered that first interview, it was clear that I understand what I wanted. I understand the space. Same thing with every other interview I did. I was not necessarily the best when it comes to the academics of it, the writing or whatever. But when it comes to what investment banking is and what the technicals are saying, I literally just usually beat everybody. So that's why I had mentioned to Lola earlier. You have to be able to play to your advantage. If you do not have a stellar academics, like a 5 pointer or a 4.8 pointer, or 4.7 pointer, and you are not so competitive, then the best way for you is to start from a process of going for a training, give yourself 3 4 months to actually learn about what we do rigorously. This is what you are doing on a daily basis, because again, it's what you want to do for the rest of your life. So if what you really want for me now, I'm sorry, I might be biased here, but for me, it's just clear that what I want to do for the rest of my life in investment banking is what I've called myself for, right?
No, since I got something, yeah, that's finished.
Oh, sorry, your mic is muted.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry. My network went off and I had to restart my router. Again, apologies for that. But I think I will stop there. And let me quickly run through the questions I've received to be sure that I've captured everything. Having no prior experience financially, that does one transition. I think I've been able to actually speak to that. But again, I would still check if it's what I've said is compressible. Let me go to the other questions. How to analyze how to always have balance sheet balance and financial analysis. I'm sorry, we won't be able to
No,
cover.
something,
Yeah,
something.
please go
If
ahead.
you can, you don't have to worry about those other questions. So, for
Oh, okay,
example, I think Sammy's hand is up. So we'll just take questions from other people that are able to make it here, and then we'll just
great.
plan the find a way to run it. So, Sammy, hand is up.
Okay,
You can ask a question.
okay, okay. Thanks, Ade.
All right. All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, clear,
Uh,
clear, crystal
okay.
clear,
Okay.
Sammy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sampson. Um, what I want to ask is how to build, what would I say, competence and confidence towards breaking into the industry. So, very brief backstory. I'm a law student trying to break into the industry. I just finished Bridge a few months ago. So, after then, I started applying, but I don't do well in interviews. So, I have not gotten an internship role. I'm a recent graduate of law. So, I went out to register for the AFM. I don't know if you know about it. And trying a couple of other programs, but I feel that despite the technicals I think I know, I am still not confident about breaking into an industry with poor performances in interviews. That's the first question. Second question is, how much knowledge of core, because you already allayed our fears about coming from a non-finance background, but it appears that someone actually needs finance background. The reason is there are areas that I struggle with in, say, modeling. You know, when we get to those places about revolver credit and many other things, I don't do, I find it very, very difficult to cope. I feel people that have done accounting, also, for instance, to creating assumptions, somebody that has done accounting that will understand how to like do assumptions in modeling. So I don't know what non-finance guys can do to be able to bridge that gap. Finally, the final one is, so for the AFM, this is a very specific question. What do you think about the certificate? I don't know if you've heard about it. I mistakenly paid for it, and then somebody told me there's no respect in the industry, and I wasted my money and all those things. So those are the three questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Thank before I touch it, but I think well, I actually think in the course of our conversation today, we've been able to capture a lot of the questions um that were sent to me. So yeah, um, Sammy, I think you, in fact, for you to even mention revolving credit, it means you're like this, right? You just have to find a way to bridge. A few things you should know. The industry is sort of it's small, right? On my team, maybe we're just like 10, 11. In fact, we've maxed out the total seats in my pool. So which means you can't necessarily hire an additional person right now unless someone leaves. So the way the industry works from hiring perspective, and this is to everyone. One, Sam, I think you're doing amazingly well, and you just don't have to. You should just don't give up. That's my word. That's it. That's the summary for you. I think you're doing amazingly well. It's a myth to think that because you don't have a accounting background, you might not be as efficient in creating assumptions. That's not true. I'm sure there are accountants in this room that doesn't even know what a revolving credit is, aside if they have done a course that speaks specifically to various form of financing and funding for corporate institutions, right? That does not necessarily know what a revolving credit is, right? But my point is, you don't need to be an accountant or economist or to break into. And I think for you to have done EduBridge and you're doing AFM, I don't subscribe to the fact that AFM is, yeah. The truth is that there's no certificate. You don't need any certification. I don't have any certification. It does not affect my promotion. The only plus is that if someone who has a CFA and someone on my level, we are in the same, we are at, and we have the same skill set. and we are the same, we are both, say for instance, associates, the person could be a step higher than me because the person have a certification. It's just the way organization structures their pay, and it's default. Just the same way, if you have an icon in a big four and you don't have an icon, your pay difference will be like maybe 20,000, 26,000, 27,000. There will always be that pay difference. It's not significant in the large scale of things, but it is not, it's just to compensate the person that have done it, not because the person is then regarded to be better than the person that have not done it. That's one for you to note. So now, having AFM, I think, is amazing. It helps you it teaches you how to think about structuring your model in an efficient manner that will be presentable. So I don't subscribe to the fact that it's not. If you're taking a certification, not because you want to use it to break in, it should be because you want to use it to better yourself. That's the way I see it. And if you have the patience to take AFM and conclude it, I think you should. If I should do it in the stellar mode. That being said, breaking in, I don't think it's because you're not good enough. Okay, there are a lot of factors. There are a lot of factors that can affect. There are a lot of factors that can affect decision, hiring decision. There are a lot of factors, as simple as even salary, right? As simple as maybe there's another person that already. So what if the people you are competing with already have AFM? They have right now there are people that are just finishing NYC. They have CFA level 1, right? So there are a lot of factors. So the way I see it is, you just need to continue with building yourself, right? Just continue that process, and whatever you're doing now, continue doing it with the very best of your ability, right? While you keep applying, the opportunity will come. It will come. It's a no-brainer. And the way you also need to deal with it is, and to people that are asking how to break in, you need to keep reaching out to people and creating that friendship. Even with your former classmate, and the way I did it for myself and what worked for me, and just to tell you a bit of story how I got into Vetiva today. I've been applying to when I remember when I decided to work in it, when I decided to be a investment banker, interested, I said, if I'm going to work anywhere in Nigeria, I want to work in Vetiva. And my reason is very simple. In Vetiva, you're a generalist. In Vetiva, you do everything. All those products I mentioned to you, if I were in Stanbic, I'll probably be in one, I'll focus on one product, which is good. It helps it gives you the capability to undo it very well. But I want to know everything, and then maybe at a point in my life, then focus on one, right? So that's by the way. My point being that you need to, if you have your course mates that are already in the industry, are you close to them? If you have your more senior colleagues, at least you have, don't focus on people you are getting to meet on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is fantastic. They have opportunities. But the best method for you is to get closer to your friends, your schoolmates, your senior colleagues, or even your junior colleagues that are already within that space, and be in their face every time. Guy, if you are recruiting, please remember me. And the point is, I remember when Jumoke was leaving Vetiva. So I have a friend called Jumoke Farombi. It was when he was leaving Vetiva, a space came up. I mean, this is Vetiva that for a year I couldn't get into for like 2 years because of what they don't have a space for hiring. But when they were hiring initially, I was still doing NYC. So the for a year there was no space, right? But when Jumoke was leaving, and every time I speak to Jumoke, I'm always in her face to say, Jimmy, don't forget me if there's any opening, just let me know. And we're always that when I was in touch with Jumoke every time, not just Jumoke, every other person within that space in investment banking, I was in touch with them. And the very moment Jumoke was leaving, she called me to send in my CV, and she sent my CV. And that's how we recruit in investment banking. It's usually internal team members send in recommendations whenever there is opening. Send in. In fact, sometimes my boss will say, Samson, we are trying to fill this role. If you have any friends, I would go and poach people that I think has the capability. I would have to poach them. So if it's a junior role, if Sammy, for instance, have been in my face to say, please, if there's any opening, I will also look at your CV. So if I look at your CV, Sammy, and what I'm seeing there is not interesting, I will call you to speak. I will first do my own interview, because if I recommend you and you underperform, it also affects the credibility of the people I'm referring. So the first, and this is the way it works everywhere, Nigeria, global, everywhere you find yourself. The first step I would take is to interview you, speak to you, learn about you, you know. So get closer to people, mostly people who are your friends, and maybe more senior colleagues, at least people that you already have like an existing relationship with. Get and let them know that, see, you're recruiting, and then keep doing your LinkedIn thing, and which I think you're already doing now. So your interview process, you can't always get it right? You can just always improve on it. So take out every time, and if possible, reach out to people that have interviewed you before. Try to find out why you were not hired. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. It's not that difficult. Some will answer, some will not. But at least if you're able to. So, for instance, there was a time in fact, when I first finished from school, then before I started NYC, I had, I had been called for an interview with Vetiva for a research role. I remember then the head of research spoke to me. We had an interview. I was not selected because I also had an interview with the HR. I was not selected, but I reached out to the head of research and he said, "Oh, Samson, to me, you were the best candidate I wanted for that role, but it was up to HR." And I got the feedback to say that, oh, HR wanted someone that have already started NYC, and it's simple. It can be as simple as that, but you have to take that initiative to reach out to find out where was the breaking point. Why was I not recruited? If you can get those feedback, it helps you to refine your process. I don't think there's anything wrong with your the fact that you're even speaking about revolving credit. It can even be a case that they feel you come in and you are too you're overqualified for the role. Because if I'm recruiting a fresh person out of school, and there's just that there's that team balance from within, what and then just again, I don't know what the issue is. I don't want to contemplate, but I would just say that take feedback. If you have recruited with a couple of people before, if you still remember their name, search them out on LinkedIn, connect with them, just type a very simple message. Oh, my name is this. I interviewed with you on this period for this role. I eventually wasn't selected. I was hoping you can give me some feedback that'll be useful for my future interview process. It's as simple as that. You take those feedback, you use it to refine. And if you don't have the feedback, just keep doing what you do best. Take your AFM. And in case you are targeting the top firms, right? You don't have to target the top guys. You can only start from somewhere. So if a chapel is not taking you in, Kairos can take you in. Right? There's a Kairos. My point is they're like smaller houses. So the word smaller is not because they are small. It's just because they probably don't have the level transaction volume that the other guys would have. But you still get the same experience at a level, right? And you know the way the industry works is by the time you start working somewhere, start gathering that experience, small, and you'll be surprised that your growth can be faster there, such that after 3 years, if you are now going to where you wanted to be before, after 2 years, you are not going to be starting as a younger analyst, you're starting like a senior analyst. And your pay will definitely be better, right? So I don't know if my conversation has been helpful, but the way I just see it is, Samuel, um, reach out, take feedback, refine the process, keep trying, focus on maybe smaller houses, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So something that's from my camera one last time. So
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for your time. And
Sure.
thank you for taking out the time to discuss this with everyone in the room. And to everyone else, thank you for showing up. Tolu's hand is up, but Tolu says the question that they wanted to ask have already been addressed. For Joe Titilayo, I'll try and you share the recording and then you get it. But thank you, everyone. Really appreciate and Samson, really thank you. I can't thank you
Sure.
enough.
Sure. No
We've gone
problem.
over time, 2 full hours.
No, I
So
mean,
yeah,
I'm always happy to have this conversation. I just really do hope that it's helpful. But like I've
yeah.
mentioned, I'll share one or two things with you that I think you can share with everyone. For those who would eventually want to like take it further, I'll share a few things I have access to with them, and hopefully they find it helpful.
All right, sure. That'll be great. That's very helpful.
All
So
right, guys.
I'm
Thank you.
expecting that.
Thanks a
So
lot,
thank
and
you. Have a lovely week ahead. And
you
thank
too.
everyone
You
for
too.
making all the time. Yeah, cheers, guys.
All right now. Yeah. Bye. Bye. Bye.